Stimson. So she is on there today. She was my CPM liaison so many years ago. Well, today I'm thankful to John for the invitation just to have an honest conversation. I don't know any other kind of conversations to have because it's too much trouble to remember when you don't tell the truth. So just truth telling. But really, just grateful that our presbytery is Matthew 25. Grace Hope is as well. As I've said before, when we got the invitation, it was kind of like a no-brainer because that was felt like the life and mission of our church anyway. So we signed on to the initiative, which has been good. And it's glad to know the presbytery is following along with that as well as you all are. Your congregations are, and I'm really just kind of puzzled as to why some congregations are not. But for whatever reason, they are not. So we hope that the Holy Spirit would shine the light on them as well. Um, really, just following up, like John said, to our conversations that we've had since September through myself and the National Black Presbyterian Caucus regarding um, just some things in the church that we could do so that all of us can live the abundant life. It's unfortunate that as human beings we are all in these different have lived different lives. We all bring all that into the church, and our mission as Christ has called us to do is, we would say it's Matthew 28 to make disciples or whatever. But in that disciple making process, there's just a lot of things that go along with that. And particularly for churches, particularly Black churches in this area, in our presbytery, and then churches with people of color. A lot of times, as I've said, we're serving in churches that are marginalized in marginalized areas, and we hear God's call very plainly, and we understand that we're to be in that place, but sometimes we just need help because of there's all kinds of medical disparity, health disparities. There's economics, there's social, it is just a whole lot of things. So, but we know we're still called to that ministry. And so we just need other human help to do that. And I think with COVID and with, just all the racial unrest of the summer and all these things, the light has been shined on some areas that really are, maybe people we have been saying for a long time, but then it became very, you know, very present, or what is that name of that movie? A clear and present danger. I mean, they're just there, and the cover was ripped off of that. So, I applaud you all for being willing to engage in Matthew 25, no matter which focus you have taken, because in effect, they all, like everything else, disproportionately affect Black and Brown people. When you're talking about congregational vitality, poverty, and racism, just all these little things that we don't think about, that they really have a full impact in our area where some of our churches serve. So through partnerships with other mid Kentucky churches, with organizations, to bring aid to the communities that we're serving in, because really it's when you help the community, you also help your congregation. And I think we've had it kind of backwards where we think we help the congregation first, which, yes, you do. That whole thing, put the oxygen mask on your mouth first, that is true. But I think we need to be more community based, community focused, still Christ centered, but community based and community focused. So, through these partnerships, we're able to do that. And we have a partnership with Highland, which we've been working our Dare to Care food pantry now, I want to say 5 or 6 years. It started when Matt Nichols was there. And he and I got together, and then this just kind of morphed into something. And Highland has always provided volunteers for that. And then we also had a worshiping type of partnership with Springdale. So we did Easter sunrise together, and Now a lot of those people are members are older, and Dwayne, when Dwayne came, he and I met and we talked, and we're like, Hope Springs Eternal is what we call that group. So he and I were like, how do we breathe new life into Hope Springs Eternal? Because a lot of people that wanted to do that sunrise on the river service were like, oh my gosh, get up and get 6 o'clock at the whole Ohio River. And no, the interest was waning. Let me say it that way. So he and I have been in contact since the last Presbytery meeting about some things we can do with Springdale and vice versa. And also with Megan, she and I talk regularly about what we can do to help each other out. It's not all one sided. It's, if they need help, I've spoken, I think as moderator though, but as a Black person in the Presbytery to Highlands Youth Group because they had gone somewhere to Triennium or somewhere and came back and didn't realize there were Black Presbyterians. Now that's not good. I mean, but that's a reality we live with. And I suspect if their youth didn't know it, maybe other youths don't know it. So we just had an honest conversation. And I think that's where it started. And I read the other day in the newsletter, they or somewhere that they have a Black Lives Matter sign in their yard now. And that was because one of their young elders, I call them junior elders, uh, came before session and said, out of that conversation, I said to them, if any of you all are elders, bring it up to session. You're a full member of the congregation. So it kind of birthed out of there. So um, and to John, I want to say, Coop, your face looks familiar, but I was a perennial student at LPTS. So that's probably where I remember you from. um, but so today, really, just wanted to provide a safe space for question and answers. And no question, I mean, like if you're looking for a Black person to ask a question, I'm I'm it. And I say that with all love in my heart, being honest. I don't want to debate. Sometimes there's this, ask a question just so you can spar. I don't want to spar. No, and the fact that you're on this call speaks volumes. But we just need to have honest conversations about what are next steps. How do we make this work, these partnerships work? And I would say that's as individual as the two churches that come together. That's how it is. One of the things, and I have a picture, and I don't know if I can show that or not, John. It's just a little, I would say a meme, because I live my life on Facebook. Let me see if I can bring it up. I think you all have all seen this. See if I can. Are you all seeing that? No, because I have to share screen. Duh. Share screen. Oh, nope, wrong one. I'll get this together sooner. Okay. Oh, duh. Okay. I don't know if you all can see that.
Mhm.
Um, because the world that we live in, the reality, a lot of times we say churchy things, but the reality of what we live is different. And you can see in this first picture, you've got a person standing on a lot of boxes, right? And they're able to see over the fence just really well. And then you've got somebody that has one box, and then you actually have somebody standing in a hole trying to see over the fence. So then as we move toward equality, which I think was a great thing, when we talked about the civil rights era and things like that, equality was the big thing. It's like give everybody the same box. Well, we still know that that really doesn't work either. You can see how one person's still taller, just because of circumstances. So equality was good for its time, but I think now the phrase is into more equity, where if you don't need a box, you don't get a box. You don't need it. And I guess they finally kind of figured out that maybe with the stimulus checks this time, they tried to do a little something different. But with equity, everybody can see over the fence, right? And that's what I feel like our maybe the goal is right now. But the true goal, as you can see, is liberation, which is you just take the whole fence down, and I think that is maybe what Matthew 25 is really working toward, and what we as a presbytery in our churches are working toward. It's just liberating people from all this injustice wherever we can. Um, so I don't know how to stop share. Oh, right there. Okay. So that just gives you a little bit of the reasoning behind, why the NBPC came forward with this. I've been Presbyterian in PCUSA now since 2012, so I'm fairly young. But when you come in, you can see things maybe that other people have not seen, or you can say things like that weird aunt that comes and stays for like 3 days and turns the household upside down and then leaves. You're glad to see her when she comes, or you're glad when she leaves. So it's just kind of that kind of thing. And I just feel like, it's time now in this moment in time that God has led us to, that we can do some things that we may have been afraid to do before. So through these partnerships, I would come into it not concerned if I'm going to say the wrong thing, not concerned I'm going to appear as a white savior, not concerned, because the honest truth is racial bias exists with all of us. I'm already thinking something about you. You're already thinking something about me. So let's just get it out and just move forward. I think, God is telling us, you've studied, you pondered, you've read. Now let's just do something. Take the first step in faith. And I think these partnerships are a way to do that. Um, and I talk a lot, so y'all have to stop me if you have a question. The way ours kind of works with Highland is we've partnered through just human resources. We need somebody. We don't have lawyers and accountants and architects, in our congregation. So recently, a couple of people from Highland came and walked through our building, which is atrocious, and try to give us some tips and some helps. And through the finance committee of the presbytery and some other sources, we've identified some sources to help us because we really do still feel called to Smoketown. We showed up there in 1890 something because when the seminary was at First and Broadway in the old JC, um, you know, so we were just a hoot and holler. So two seminary students started a colored mission for students. One side of Broadway was a Hope mission, and the other side of Broadway was the Grace mission. So these were Sunday school missions for colored kids out of the Southern Presbyterian Church, I'm guessing. So they were there, and then they morphed into individual churches. And then William Shepherd was the first pastor of the Grace Church. So then the Grace and the Hope churches merged, and then they became Grace Hope. So I think that's one thing, maybe, is to learn the history of your church if you don't know. Um, because as one church found in a Matthew 25 new video, a church in Cincinnati found that their endowment or something they had was given for white people only. And so they've decided as a congregation that they're going to take that money that is now given in the early 1900s and work on racial equity work, give it for that. So maybe a good thing is to explore your church history and see if you have an endowment or some funds, where that came from. Because a lot of times, I hate to say it was on the backs of Black people. If denominations had slaves. I mean, we all know this, Catholic Church did, but, just through some kind of exploration like that is learning the history of your congregation. So we're learning more about Grace Hope. I was actually watching and about Dr. Shepherd, who I learned about in History of Christian Experience. at Louisville Seminary before I knew I was going to be a pastor there, which was weird. But I was watching a pastor in Baltimore or in Virginia, a Sunday sermon, and he was doing a special on HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities. Well, that Sunday he was highlighting Stillman College, and Stillman College is where William Shepherd went to school. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the president of Stillman College give all this Presbyterian history about William Shepherd. So, you know, me, my mind starts going. So I actually emailed the president of Stillman College and I said, can we use your video on our website? Because it gives history that some people may not know, but it also, Dr. Shepherd was so well known, he and his wife Lucy, in Smoketown, that there's Shepherd Square, there's Shepherd this, Shepherd that, Shepherd everything. And so we started to learn that history. So it's not on our website right now. We're updating our website. But I had this email conversation with her, and she said, we would love to have students from your church at Stillman. So I'm going, okay, you know. So just reach out. Don't be afraid. Just, you know, it's a simple email. And I did I expect her to answer me back? No, I thought maybe, you know, but she did. And she said the next time after COVID, I'm in Louisville, I want to come by and see, you know, meet with you. And I'm going, okay, you know. So you never know. It's just those little nudgings of the Holy Spirit, I think, first and foremost. But I was shocked to know I learned so much from watching what she said about her college. So that's one thing I say, learn the history of your congregation. And maybe that'll give you a lead as to how you can partner with the church or, you know, just learn where did your church's wealth come from. Um, Another thing you could do is just reach out to another church if you're in an area like Brad Palmer down in Greensburg, and there's not another Black Presbyterian church there. Reach out just to a Black pastor and just say, hey, you know, can we have a conversation? You know, is there ways we can partner together? Can our youth groups get together? Can just anything, you know, and just to hear a different perspective. Because also, I think it's important, particularly as preachers and ministers of word and sacrament or whatever we call ourselves, to be able to hear a different perspective on the gospel, because it is for all people, right? But there are some particularities I think that you can learn through hearing a different perspective on it. Um, any questions or anything we at this time? I can just talk forever. Any comments? I think somebody had something in the chat which I didn't see. Um,
It's comments about the meme that you shared.
mhm,
The funny thing for me in that graphic, I had seen it before.
mhm.
And I shared it on Facebook, and the person said, "Well, why do you have to have short pants to feel liberation? Because all of a sudden, all of this, one of the figures has long pants. If you notice, did you notice that
No,
now? And at the end, they have everybody has short pants, and I went like, well, I understand that people, when they move from the north to the south, certainly tourists in Puerto Rico, when they get there during the winter time, they take off all the clothing and just enjoy the summer
no.
like weather. So, so I guess that was the case. The other thing that you reminded me of when you were talking about William Shepherd is that PPC published a book on him uh,
Mhm.
a few years ago. So if you're interested in reading more on him, I can share the information in the chat room.
Okay, I think I may have several books, but if put it in there and I'll see if we have it.
Mhm.
Um, you know, that's part of our reaching out. I kind of reach, as you would say, across the aisles, because um, you know, because really we're just about serving the kingdom or serving God through people, making bringing forth the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. So if you're near to a church and it's not Presbyterian, don't, you know, go over and just see. Maybe y'all just have picnic. Just got to be something that is interpersonal. And I guess that's what I want to say. Worship is good. We do that with pulpit exchanges, which I think are good as well, and worship experiences, but really getting to know the heart of a person, because I think that's where it starts, through relationship building. And also, evangelism to me starts through relationship building. The people that we've seen for the last 5 years, they're a whole nother worshiping community for us. And you may not think it like that. We think of it as ministry we're doing to them. But I have to believe that through a box of produce, the spirit is working in some kind of way. And that is, they may never show up at worship. And I think our congregation has had to get over that fact, that that's what they want, the full church again. But I don't know that it's going to happen that way. But that doesn't mean you're any less effective. And as I said earlier today on a call, we don't have to give a Bible tract for people to get a plate. Just show the love of Christ. And you never know what that does in people's lives. Our churchy ideas, sometimes they work. And I don't know, since COVID, when we go back, I don't know that we might need to revamp some things. So, yeah. Um, I don't know. One of the
Angela.
other ways I think that you can partner together, with, well, two of our Black churches is, through Clout. And I know one time I was on here talking about Clout. That's Citizens of Louisville Organizing United Together, which is community organizing, which I think our churches really need to look more into doing that, because that's a way to affect change for people. And it's Matthew 25 in the fact that it affects change for all people, but also for the populations that are disproportionately affected. So, but one thing I think we have mixed up is community organizing and justice work. It's not political. Like, I think some churches are afraid to get involved in politics. It's not really politics as much as it's justice. It's just saying, we need more money in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Mayor Fisher, we need that money. How is that political? I mean, maybe it feels like it because we're dealing with government officials and things like that, but they work for us. We elect them. Um, and sometimes we have to maybe insist that they keep the promises that they made when we elect them. But I don't consider that politics. There's a difference between justice and politics. Um, Jesus did a lot of justice work. We may not think of it that way, but when you feed and clothe and teach and show how people how to live a different life, that's justice work. Um, and salvation is communal. So that's justice work as well. So I think we have to maybe make that distinction between politics and justice. And I don't have magic words for that. Like I said, we don't have doctors and lawyers and all this sitting in our congregations, but we still do get that same pushback, um, because people don't want to hear about, a lot of times, what's going on in the world, but it's affecting you in the pew too. So to be able to speak truth to power, Jesus did that all the time. As a matter of fact, that's what got him killed, really. So if you just kind of have to, I think, as elders and clergy, maybe walk a fine line, but you have to slowly integrate that into, um, the words we speak, the messages we hear, into some of our Bible studies and things like that, where we really look at that. Um, Take, for instance, Raphael Warnock. Is that justice or politics? I don't know if he'll remain the pastor of Ebenezer. I don't know. But now he's in the Senate. So I don't know how you make that distinction, but I think we need to start moving toward that, making that distinction so it becomes clear for people. If I can't, I get pushed back. If we were in person, I would have gotten pushback all summer on some of the messages that were preached. But I feel like we are hurting so badly, not just as Black people, but also because of the pandemic. Everybody's hurting. You have to be able to speak to that hurt. I need a pastor when I come in that can say, this week really sucked, you know, and be honest about it instead of putting on my church face and just praise the Lord, all is well. And you're thinking all is not well because the other person told me that your child was arrested last week and they're still in jail because you don't have money to get them out. Let's just be real. So I think we need to be more realistic, but that's one of the ways to partner. I'm saying with two of our Black churches that are in Clout, Westwood and Grace Hope. You're welcome to stand with us. If your church is not ready, I'd say as clergy, if your church is not ready to embark on that type of ministry yet, but if you want to just go through the process, the Clout process is cyclical. And right now we're in the research to action phase. We've been researching different areas around community safety and equity. And we're about to come forth with 2 or 3 solutions to issues that are affecting the whole community. So you're welcome to stand with us or with Westwood and just listen to the process. They are a very organized machine. They are part of the DART network, Direct Action Research Training Network. And in a lot of cities, they are doing great work in terms of getting public officials to listen to what the people are saying, which is funny. It's kind of like what we do as leadership in the church, right? Listen to what the people are saying.
You
So,
remind me what CLOUT stands for. I got part of it.
Citizens of Louisville organized and united together. There are like 19 congregations from east to west, north to south in Louisville. And we come together and have a listening process where we have these house meetings and you hear some of the most horrible things going on in people's lives. So then we kind of see what the golden thread is through all these meetings, 400 and something people speaking. And then we develop an issue, try to see what the real issue is, and then develop a solution. If that means we go to Marty Polio, if it's a youth and children issue and it's manifesting in schools, then we go to him and say, would you agree to do this, in schools to help? Because I imagine they started back today. I wonder how it went because there are so many kids that have been either unsupervised or maybe the teachers are starting to see what goes on in the household. We have multi-generations living in the same households. We have kids just smoking weed when they're supposed to be NTI, sexual acts, all kinds of things are going on. And we wonder, why don't you have your homework done? You think, well, I couldn't find 2 good minutes to be by myself, to do anything. So it's a broad range of things. But I think as partnering as churches, we can cover more ground, right? We can cover more ground because some churches have resources that others don't. And like I say, with our partnership with Highland, an architect and an engineer came through and gave us some advice. And so we're pursuing that, through a different avenues to keep the building standing. So,
Angela, I think that there was a question from Candy Cubbage.
Oh, I have to think back. Actually, I was going to tell you that a couple of calls ago, I was the associate pastor at First Presbyterian in Waynesboro, Virginia, where William Shepherd grew up.
Oh, cool.
And he grew up kind of in the church. They
Mhm.
claim him, but really he was the son of the custodian of the church.
Wow. Yeah.
Now the church did help finance some of his education, but boy, they're still proud of him. That's part of it's a big historical church. It's been there forever. And they're very, very proud of him. And I thought, well, that's really interesting that you had this one Black person in the church over the 200 years you've been here. The next call I had was in a different state, in a presbytery that has Shepherd's name in it. I won't say which one. And they too are very fond of claiming William Shepherd as part of their history and all this. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting watching. There are Black churches in Alabama though. But it's interesting the white churches that I've seen that like to claim William Shepherd because he's like a golden boy kind of a thing. And I thought, I never heard anything about what he really did other than he went to Africa. But
he had a good time in Africa, evidently, because
yeah.
when he came back, the Southern Church wanted to I guess the word's not defraud, but yeah.
But yeah, I think it is actually. But yeah,
The current term is demit. Just FYI. Demit from the ministry.
Yeah. So I why am I bringing that up? Just that there's a connection that we claim, and we don't just do that about William Shepherd. We do that about whoever that we can somehow have an association with someone who's somebody. There are a lot of somebodies out there whose names aren't on the building or on the presbytery or the name of the church who have really done a lot, and we don't know that history. That's what brought all this up, as you were talking about our church's history. I mean, I think it is a good idea to really go through and make sure you know your own church's history. What has happened here? And there are some things that you'll find out really quick, and some things that will take quite a while to find out about. But I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, because that could set you on a path as a Matthew 25. And I don't know that, I think there is that video that you can see. It's the latest Matthew 25 video. And it talks about the church in Cincinnati. It's a good, I don't know if John can put that in the chat or something, but they explored that.
Find it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, John, but that's always a good place to start. And then just trying to figure out what your history is, because there may be something there that would lead you on a path if you're not sure of what to do or how to engage. But I think the main thing that I would say is, let us not be ye not afraid. We're going to make mistakes. But I think it's time to move on. It feels like, God is bringing us all to this point. And even COVID, I don't know where COVID came from, but even God doesn't waste anything. I'm a Romans 8:28. So, whatever comes out of COVID, there's something for us to learn there that we could be using. So I guess one question I have for you all is, how are you all embracing Matthew 25 as it is? Or are you in the investigation stages, or how are you doing?
Harvey Brown's, we've had a relationship with Shawnee for about 13 years. And some of the things we did at the beginning was they would have different fundraisers. And so we would attend those. We would meet, we had a committee from each church. And so we met at our church and we meet at their church. Sometimes we met in our homes, and then that helps out, get to know each other personally. Then they've had things like the fresh market out of their, whatever it's called, where you have the food shares. They did that out of Shawnee. And
Fresh
so then
Stop, yeah.
Fresh Stop. And so then we would go down and help them. They've had some tutoring sessions in the summer and some after school programs. and we would support those. We've tried, it isn't in our budget these 13 years because we haven't wanted to seem like we wanted it to be more of a partnership, but when there's a need, we've raised money or we've sold Kroger cards, things like that. Then they have free Monday night dinner, and so we've supported that. One thing we're doing right now is we're choosing 3 movies on home equity, Invictus, 13th, which is about prison reform, and American Son, which is about police. And we are watching them each church. Then we're going to join together for a discussion on Zoom and have like a moderator and, just try to communicate on a deeper level in that way. And they're looking into the Hope Bus possibly at their church. And so we'll see what we can do to support them. But it's been both helping them, I'd say, as they reach out in the community, and then also trying to go deeper as far as understanding
Yes.
each other.
Yeah, I think that's the key for some of us, just to realize that everybody doesn't live the way we live. And I think once we come out of that headspace, once we get there, we can start to see more broadly and a different perspective. Like when the pandemic first started, on our we were doing Tuesday and Thursday, John would have all the clergy together and ruling elders or whatever. And it's like, how do we have church? Well, we were just all just frazzled. And, the idea would come up, can you do drive-in worship? Well, Grace Hope, I think I figured the percentage was 46% of our people do not have cars. So, you think, well, they can just pull up in the garage. No, we pick up people in the church van. And, so it's just another way of thinking, just another something to put in your file cabinet, of life, that everybody doesn't live the way we live. And, so just even knowing that helps us minister differently, and it helps us to be in relationship with each other differently. Everybody doesn't have Wi-Fi. It's just a whole nother world. And I'm just saying that awareness is key. Awareness is key. So, yeah, I know Stachel, and I saw her on the news. She was going to be on the Civilian Review Board, but now she had a post about hating the police, and they just.
Oh, was that her? Oh, that's bad.
But I mean, in the midst of when stuff was happening, yeah, we hated the police. I mean, it's like, it's like, okay, well, whatever. So I don't know if she'll make the cut or not. So, yeah.
At Anchorage, we started a couple of months ago, before we had a commitment to all of this, and we started a group that just came together to read books. So we started out with, Walking in the Wind with John Lewis. And of course, I had to laugh and say, you had to pick a book that's 700 pages for the first book, really? But we did. We went through that after multiple weeks. And then we read Waking Up White, and we just finished Dr. Brenda Salter's Becoming Brave. Which is an incredible book about what you were just talking about, becoming, and you learn some stuff, now go do stuff.
Right.
Don't be afraid. And don't be afraid. As Christians, we are called to get involved in justice. So very similar to what you said. So we all kind of got on the program and said, well, we got to do stuff now. What do we got to do? So, the vitality is there. We're trying to figure this all out. One of the things that we're looking to do, so we're using the same group on another night to kind of pull together topics. What we'd like to have is some to expand the knowledge within our own congregation, and as well as invite community to them. And so we are putting, they don't want to call it lecture, but sort of a teaching series together in the fall. And we're looking at multiple things, including redlining and the laws and what the laws have done, and all keep it within Louisville topics. so that it becomes something we're not talking nationally, we're talking about where we live. And again, racial disparities in education, racial disparities in health, and within Louisville, employment and entrepreneurship opportunities. So these are some of the topics, and we're gathering information about them and thinking that this is something by this fall we can have formally done, but then also, as why Pastor Tara wanted me on this, to hear what y'all are doing, and whether it's Dare to Care or getting involved in terms of the clout, what you're talking about. So we want to keep moving forward with this. We're kind of excited about where we're going, but it's still to be determined.
Yeah. I mean, partnerships with churches and organizations. The thinking is sometimes that we have to do everything ourselves. That's the way it was. I remember when my mother would go to the church on Saturday and fried chicken all the way till midnight. You know, we don't have to do, you know, now it's a matter of emailing Norton Faith and Health Ministries and saying, can you come and do free flu shots on, you know, sometime? And they say, sure, you know, and you're going, well, what do we need? Nothing, just open the door. You know? So I think the other thing about partnerships, and, you know, whether they're Black churches, white churches, whatever, is making our space available to other people. You know, for instance, in Smoketown, there is nowhere to have a meeting. You know, you know, in our building, we're working through some stuff, trying to get it in repair enough for people to come in. But case in point, I was telling John, Norton came yesterday to look at our building to be a COVID site and a vaccination site. And Lord knows we need, you know, that people can walk to the church from Smoketown or Shelby Park right behind us and get a COVID vaccine. Well, our chapel is not big enough. So originally when I talked to them, I was like, can you do it outside? I mean, let's just pitch a tent, have 8 tables out there. You could do 16 people at a time. You know, they're not there yet in their thinking. They were like, well, it has to be inside because we need Wi-Fi, and, you know, it has to be this, that, and the other and all that. But eventually you're going to have to get there, because I don't care how many churches, you know, if they have it at Anchorage and then you all say we'll provide transportation. If I live in Preston and Jackson, I'm not going to call you to drive me all the way to Anchorage. You know, I'm not even going to call you to drive me to 17th and Muhammad Ali. You know, I will walk 2 blocks over to Grace Church because I know that's where Reverend Angela and them are, and I'll just get a, you know, it's that whole theme. But I think partnerships in terms of being thinking more broadly how we do that. We don't have to pay our own bucks for everything we do. And we don't have to, you just open your space and let it be what it needs to be. You know, if we need an after-school tutoring program, if the Kent School of Social Work wants to come and do something, let's just open it and be the church. You know, open the space and be the church. So that sounds really good. I know a couple of the pastors in Anchorage, and they're old school Black churches. So there ain't a woman unless she's got on white gloves and standing on the floor of the church and not in the pulpit. So it's, you know, and so that, you know, but that still doesn't mean you might not reach out, you know, and do something else if it's not preaching or something, but it's maybe getting kids together, or, you know, having joint vacation Bible school. I don't know, you know.
Angela, could I just piggyback just really briefly on one of the important things I think that you said, and I want to make sure that everyone in the presbytery heard it, and that is use the gifts that God has given your particular church, right? You don't have to create new things. So one of the things I heard Angela say is that Highland had people who were architects or who were lawyers who knew how to do certain things, and Grace Hope had a need of that, right? You didn't need to recreate somebody. You don't have the lawyers out there necessarily with mix and concrete, right, to pour a sidewalk. They're doing the lawyering for Grace Hope, right, for those type of things, because Grace Hope is trying to get a 501c3, so they need some legal advice and help for that, right? So a similar thing happened in the presbytery with Westwood Church. They were having problems with a roof that was faulty. The insurance company was turning them down. The presbytery got involved with some people who knew the insurance business. We got them some money from the insurance company. We used the expertise that we had, right, to help the need that was there. We didn't try to say, oh, well, what they really need is that. No, the question was, do we have the expertise to help them out in that area, right? To be a partner in that area. And they came to us, say, can you help? And we said, I don't know, let's see, right? And it's that kind of thing too. One other just quick factoid as well. I don't know if you know this. I'll be glad to share some of this with you if you like. Going to Candy's point and Angela's point about knowing your history. Kudos for the person who can tell me the first year that the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America, our ancestors, admitted Black people into membership. Our first church in the New World was in 1640.
Wow.
1640. What year did we first say Black people were members?
Is it 1790 something?
It's later than that.
18. I want to say in Philadelphia. I don't know why I'm thinking that.
It was 1848. That's the first year that we said Black folks were Presbyterians.
Yeah.
So know your history. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that's a thing, right? And one of the reasons why the church didn't want to admit Blacks is that in the South, the Blacks outnumbered the whites in many of the churches.
It's just
And
like
they
the
didn't want-
Israelites, right?
Yeah,
They were the
exactly.
Israelites.
Exactly. Yeah.
John, you just reminded me of a story from a Latino pastor that was in this national event, and he was sitting around this table, and somebody said, well, I wish that the church would be in the same position in society as in the 1950s. 1950s was a good year for churches, and it was really we were strong and had an influence in society. And and my pastor friend goes like, I wouldn't be able to be here if it was the church in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Do we have any other final questions for Angela other than to say a huge thank you for sharing with us today? Yes. And let's keep up the conversations. We'll meet again next month. I'll try to have another guest for you to talk about a different aspect of Matthew 25. If you have ideas, let me know. This event is recorded today because there were some who couldn't be here. And I will post it on the Presbytery's YouTube channel, so people will be able to do that. So I'm going to stop recording